arising with our clients on a daily basis. So we're just seeing the cover under insurance policies is changing on a continuous basis as underwriters and insurers constantly review, strengthen and or amend their position on the wording as they better understand where they're coming from on it. We've seen it come under a few topics. So the most common one is the business interruption cover on it, but it also affects your property insurance, employers and public liability, and your motor insurance. If we start at the business interruption, so since March when this began, the number of inquiries and media attention on insurance cover has primarily centred around business interruption cover. And it's clear from the responses from insurers that the underwriters, their intention wasn't to underwrite the interruption to trade and economic activity arising from a global pandemic like COVID-19. Standard business interruption cover does not include forced closure by authorities, and usually only responds to physical damage at the property, which results in the business being unable to trade as normal. If there's no infectious disease cover under a business interruption policy, then there was likely no basis for making a claim in this scenario. We have seen, however, some business interruption policies may include cover extensions in relation to infectious disease. Most of these policies only provide cover due to a closure of the business authority by a public authority on the basis that a confirmed infectious disease outbreak has occurred at the premise itself or within a defined radius to the premises. And normally the effects of a global pandemic wouldn't be included under that.
And would or wouldn't?
Wouldn't
have
not,
been
sorry.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, that's been a very contentious issue. We've heard a lot about it. Sorry, could I just ask everybody to go on mute? That would be great. Thanks very much. We're just getting some background noise there. But in terms of, are there exceptions to any of that?
Yeah, there are. There's a small number of business and policies that will have some exposure. And it's determined on the legal interpretation of their policy wording. So at the moment, there are three to four high-profile cases listed for the High Court in October, which are challenging such wordings out there. And should cover be established, the likelihood is these policies would have low limits of cover, and time period would be restricted from 1 to 3 months potentially on it. And even then, when insurance companies go to adjust these claims, we expect that insurers are likely argue an overall downturn in both national and global economic activity that would have affected the business revenues regardless of a business closure. And therefore, what your expectations for a payment under the policy are likely to be adjusted for that scenario. And even as policies fall due for renewal coming up, so the ones that may have been ambiguous under cover, most insurance have now amended their policy wordings and input either COVID-19 exclusions and or total virus or disease exclusions under the policies going forward.
Right. And would many people previously have had infectious diseases? Was that an additional extra that would have cost a fair bit, or is it, in the small print, or how common would it have been to have it?
So it's not a standard policy or standard cover across it. Some insurers offered it as standard, other insurers offered it as an optional add-on on it. So it really depended on the policy. And as I said, even with the infectious disease cover on there, a lot of them restricted cover to an outbreak on your property. So the intention was that if somebody ate or contracted a disease while on your premises, there would be cover there. Otherwise, it wouldn't be.
So a completely different scenario to what we've experienced with the pandemic.
Exactly.
So in terms of your property your actual building when it's unoccupied during the lockdown. What's the story with that, and what's the cover insurance-wise?
Yeah, when a property becomes unoccupied, generally a property or policy has an unoccupancy conditions or warranties that apply on it. And again, normal times people would be well aware of what was coming down, but a lot of this happened in a quick time frame, and people probably didn't give consideration to their insurance cover under policies. So the conditions and warranties put obligations under the policyholder in relation to security and inspections of unoccupied properties. In normal practices as well, insurers would have reduced the cover to fire, lightning, explosion and aircraft. So your perils of flood and theft would normally be excluded. But most insurers we're seeing are aware of the government travel exclusions and have removed the inspection requirements under the policies. They've also, again, most insurance have continued to provide full cover that was previously afforded under the policy, as if they were trading, even if it was closed. And that's continuously changing. So as government updates come through on the timescales for reopening, insurers are extending that cover period over and beyond. But people should be aware that, at the moment, most of the policies give cover maybe up to the end of July. But if you as a business decide you're not in a position to reopen or whatever, you'll have to refer to your broker and your policy wording just to see what obligations are in there in relation to ensuring cover is maintained on your property.
Okay, so you'd really advise business owners to take out their policy, ring their insurance company or their broker and be sure they're covered. Have a lot of people, do you think, kind of not even thought about that, or has every commercial business client of yours been in contact?
Yeah, so I suppose us as a brokerage, we would have sent out communications to our clients on it, but I know myself from the amount of communications that I'm getting from various suppliers, from my own electricity supply to internet, everything else, you can become overwhelmed on it, so you mightn't pay attention on it. So what I'd ask is people just to be aware of it. If they have any queries, contact their insurance provider, take out their policy wording, just read through it and understand what their obligations may be for this cover. And
it will give some peace of mind, I suppose, to know where you stand.
Exactly.
So in terms of motor insurance, you mentioned.
So on the motor insurance, we're seeing there a number of clients have been in contact with us where they're trying to protect their employees as they get back to business or their customers, and are putting perspex screens in their vehicles to stop the spread of infection. You have to notify your insurers if you intend putting in separation screens in your vehicles. Most of the insurance companies are requiring that the installation of these screens are verified or certified by either an engineer or, in some cases, even with a new DOE or VCRT cert on the vehicle. I suppose the reality is, if one of these vehicles has been modified and is involved in an accident, it could actually increase the risk of injury rather than protecting the employees on it. Some of the engineers that we've engaged with as well around this, just asking their advice as well, have questioned how effective some of these screens may possibly be if there is air conditioning or even a normal fan turned on in the vehicle, that the circulation of air in a confined space like that might be counterproductive to actually putting in a screen on the vehicle. But the important piece is, if you have done it or you're intending to do it, is notify your insurance company straight away, because it is a modification on the vehicle.
It sounds like it's another expense as well for the driver in terms of getting it fitted. Then if they have to get certified and to be sure it's the right material, and possibly might affect the insurance cover policy cost as well. So it's worth to ask the questions before you proceed with any of those pieces by the sounds of it. So we also, when we were chatting before, you mentioned the consumer insurance Contract Act of 2019. And would you like to just expand on that and tell us a bit more?
Yeah, I suppose it's something that has got a bit lost in the current environment, you know, with everything else. But the Consumer Insurance Contracts Act was signed into law on the 26th of December 2019. Now, between COVID-19 and without a current government in place, that act has yet to be enacted. Okay, so we may see further amendments to the bill or to the act before it's actually legislated on. Generally speaking, consumers are defined as a natural person or sole trade or partnership corporation who have turnover less than 3 million. The Act abolishes the duty of utmost good faith and requires customers only to answer specific questions that are asked of their insurance company, honestly and reasonable care. One of the possibilities that we might see of this is more lengthy and detailed proposal forms and applications coming from insurance companies. So rather than the general question, is there anything else specific or material fact relative to your business, they may now have to list out all the items that they want. So we could see it being a very detailed and lengthy process potentially for customers on it. The Act also abolishes the basis of contract clauses in contracts. So any term in a contract which would have been expressed as a warranty based on a statement of fact or something in a proposal form from a customer is now replaced and will be unenforceable going forward. The whole idea of that is actually to strengthen the position of the policyholder, to make sure that they, in the event of a loss or a claim, that there's less obstacles for them to overcome in ensuring that there's a valid claim to be made. But while it's yet to be seen, it has the potential to lengthen the process for the application or moving between insurers going forward.
Okay, so it sounds like we'll be hearing more about that piece as it becomes, it comes into legislation over the next few months.
Exactly.
Okay, well, look, you can come back and we can do another webinar on that piece when it comes into law. So in terms of the whole landscape of the sector in Ireland, what, has there been changes that you've seen during the last 3 months? As there is in fairness, in every other sector has seen some kind of change. What has happened in your sector? Yeah.
I suppose going back slightly, the insurance market has been continuously changing anyway from a capacity perspective, with insurers coming in and out. Going back slightly to the COVID-19, on your employer's liability and public liability, we are seeing a small number of insurers starting to put in specific exclusions around their liability on that. So while it may be hard for a potential claimant to enforce a claim that they contracted COVID or a disease while on your premises, it's more of a factor for employees. And again, people should be aware when renewing their policy just to watch out for those kind of exclusions. If we look back then at the capacity piece, motor insurance, we're seeing lots of capacity in there and lots of competition for it. So if I go back 10 years, we would have seen reduced capacity, insurers move and increasing rates. So at the moment, that bears well for policyholders. So there's lots of competition in moving and pricing to move. Brexit has seen a lot of, or a number of niche insurers in particular withdrawn from the Irish market. So what again would have been highly publicised would be childcare facilities, playground, internal soft play areas, bouncy castle providers. So they've decided that Ireland is such a small market for them, and they were operating as a branch out of the UK. It's not worth their while potentially opening it up, and have withdrawn from the market. So cover is very difficult to place, and if it is placed, you generally only have one market for that kind of business on it. even in the general Lloyd's market, on the liability front, we would see a reduced appetite for Irish business with very little competition and an increase of rates. So again, for your high footfall retail businesses or hospitality businesses, again, it's a really challenging time on top of an already difficult COVID situation. Footfall businesses in general, we're seeing a reducing capacity for it, and it's vital that all insurances make themselves best presentable for an insurance company. So making sure that they have really good risk assessments in place, really good health and safety, and that all their claims experience is the best thing. And it's twofold. It's not only that you're looking to attract competition for your business, but you want to ensure that the current insurer on your business sees you as an attractive business and is willing to continue to insure that and continue to give you competitive rates to keep it in there.
Okay.
Again, the Consumer Insurance Act, we've yet to see if that has any implication on capacities in the market. And the other one was professional indemnity insurance. So we've seen a major contraction in professional indemnity, especially in the construction sector, which would have been a result of the Grenfell Towers fire. A lot of questions around the use of insulated panels and the materials on it. So it's challenging times, property, loads of capacity in property, but it is a case of making sure your risk and your business is best presented to attract competition for your business.
Yeah. So what do you see are the main kind of risks coming down the track in the next, 12 to 18 months for business owners in terms of insurance?
Yeah, I suppose one of the big things we've seen is the directors and officers liability or D&O. So if we compare it to the US or the UK, we have very little penetration in D&O cover for Irish SMEs. But given the personal liability of directors under the Companies Act and the Safety, Health and Welfare Act, we're seeing investigations and prosecutions being brought against directors which may have no corresponding insurance cover in place for it. COVID-19 is probably also bringing directors' duties under the microscope on it. While the larger corporations have embraced this at a boardroom level and see it as a vital insurance company, it's something again for SMEs to at least be aware of the cover that's there, consider their options, and then at least they can make an informed decision whether it's a cover they want to buy or not. But it's a calculated risk then that they're taking on that basis. The other one probably as well, which we're seeing a lot of is cyber liability and cyber crime cover. Again, penetration in the Irish SMEs would be very low compared to our UK markets. Previously, we would have seen with the introduction of GDPR, the insurance industry would have sold the product on the basis of potential investigations or fines for data breaches. And while most standard policies would cover that, Irish SMEs don't see that as potential risk to themselves, which may be true depending on what space you're in. But what we are seeing a big increase is in cyber crime or social engineering, where criminals are exploiting the situation of COVID-19 or other opportunities, and what they're trying to do is misdirect payments. So they may sit with malware or Trojan software in on a system and monitor email communication over a number of weeks or months, and then at an opportune time, employee will receive a communication that appears to be from a genuine source. Likely it's saying, for example, I may get an invoice from Laois Chamber of Commerce and they'd say, please be aware, Damian, we've now changed our bank account details. Can you make the payment across to our new bank account? And an employee may pick that up and send it across without questioning it. and what you're looking for is that cyber crime cover. So you may be talking small money, which you can absorb, or if it's a potentially big supplier or big contractor, it may be detrimental to the survival of a business. Crime is a specific cover under a policy that is as an add-on and wouldn't be a standard cover. So again, you should take advice on it and see what is the most relevant cover for your situation, and again make an informed decision whether this is a cover I want to purchase or I'm taking a risk of not doing it. But it's calculated.
And in terms of, so many businesses have now started trading online that they never did before and taking payments. It's really crucial that they look at this whole issue to cover themselves, and hopefully it won't cost them too much. I have a question here. Really, when I'm out about meeting business owners, insurance comes up time and time again, and business owners are very worried about what's going to happen. For example, this question came in from someone in the hospitality industry in Laois, and she would be very concerned about, if somebody comes to her accommodation and they contract COVID, and they sue her, it would put her out of business, really. What can you say to somebody with those concerns?
It's like everything. It is, while some policies are providing cover for, so your general one is bodily injury, disease or illness is generally what covers, and disease is in there. We are seeing some insurers, as your policy falls due for renewal, excluding COVID cover or virus going forward. As a business owner, what you need to be doing in any regard is adhering to the government guidelines, following all the risk procedures and detail in there, making sure that you have all the relevant hand sanitizers, cleaning requirements in place, but also documenting exactly what you're doing, how you're doing it, and when it was done. So in any of these cases, it's to protect yourself from a potential claim, that you have taken all reasonable precautions and steps out there to do it. Again, under a member of the public or a guest coming in, it would be difficult to see how somebody could prove negligence against the business owner there, because it's a communicable disease and it's out there. Who says they got it in your premises and not another? But I do think it's vitally important for your employees that you are showing leadership here and covering it off, because they're going to be in your premises more than a member of the public or anything else. And that's where the potential exposure may be down the line.
You just said that you're seeing with renewals that COVID has been excluded. And is there a facility to pay to add it back in there, or has it just been completely?
It's been completely excluded. So it's as I said, it's a small number of insurers. It's not been across the board by any remarks on it, but it is something you need to look at. So you may be with insurer A, and insurer B may be offering COVID-19 cover or disease cover. But you may have to pay more or move insurer to get that piece on it. So again, it's being best informed and talking to your insurance advisor, going, really, what's my options with and without the cover? What are the differences in the policy wordings? And then ultimately the affordability test on it, where it'll be some sectors will find that there is only one or two insurers that will quote for their business anyway. And if both of them exclude it, then there is no option to buy it back in, where other sectors will find that they have 4, 5, 6 insurers interested in quoting their business. One might be excluding it, so then it's going for the other 5. And I suppose going back to everything, the most competitive price isn't always the best price. And I think people need to look at the detail of the cover that they're being provided under the policies.
Yeah. So in terms of the hospitality sector, for example, are there many insurers that will cover it?
You're probably looking at half and half, potentially, is where it's going. But the premium difference between the two is significant.
Yeah.
That's
that's where the problem lies, particularly for small businesses, that it's another cost on top of the mounting cost to get reopened and become COVID compliant. And for this particular business, you know, she probably has to employ more staff to ensure that she's adhering to all of these new guidelines. So it's really catch-22 really for business owners, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a really difficult piece there for insurance or for clients out there.
Yeah.
Insurance companies, again, they're just monitoring the situation, because again, they're not just looking at Ireland in isolation. It's a global requirement for them, and what they're looking is their solvency ratios and ability to trade and underwrite business all depends on how much claims or potential claims they may be faced with in the future.
Look, I don't see any questions coming in, but I can. I didn't start the recording when I started speaking, so for anyone who missed it, just this is Damian Smith, who's the regional manager with Campion Insurance, and I'd imagine that you're available for anyone to contact you at any point if they have any questions, either existing or potentially new customers. You just mentioned earlier, you're all still working either skeleton staff in the office or remotely throughout the country.
Yeah, so that's it. So we have 12 offices throughout the country. In Portlaoise there, we have one of our larger offices in the town. So you'll see there that we are open for clients coming in by appointment. So if there's particular documentation that they need filled out, whatever, but from the start of this, we have been required as a necessary service. So we have been operating. All our staff are still working, whether it's at home or in the office, but call us at your local office. You can ask for myself or any of the guys there, and most importantly, we're there for advice. So the first and foremost, we'll give you the advice and your options that are there, rather than trying to force sell any product into anyone. If they just want to, even if the renewal isn't due now, we're happy to have that conversation with them and just give them a second opinion.
I'm delighted to say that Campion Insurance are members of the Chamber as well, great supporters of everything that we've done to date. Our events have kind of been put on hold, but hopefully they'll come back soon enough. So thanks very much, Jamie, for taking the time, and it's great that we've been able to record this. As I mentioned earlier, as the weeks get busier and reopening starts, there's less people available to do these webinars, so being able to catch up with them on a recording is a great facility. And thanks again for taking the time and for a very informative session. I've learned a lot myself, to be honest, it's great. When I'm out meeting members, I can answer some of their questions and point them to the experts as well. So thanks again.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Bernie.
Thank you.
Bye.